What if everything you believed about heart health was backwards? What if the secret to clean arteries had nothing to do with expensive medications, complicated diets, or the latest supplement your doctor recommended? There is a small island in southern Japan where people routinely live past 100, where heart attacks are rare, where men and women in their 90s still tend their gardens, walk to the market, and laugh loudly with friends every single day. And the scientists who went there to study them came back with an answer so simple, it almost made them feel foolish for not seeing it sooner. It starts with what these people eat before 8 in the morning, and it continues with a 4-word rule that most of us have never heard of. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your dinner plate the same way again. Let's start with the biology, because once you understand what is happening inside your arteries, everything else will make perfect sense. Your arteries are not just passive pipes carrying blood from one place to another. They are living tissue. They contract, they expand, they respond to everything you eat, everything you feel, and everything you do. When your arteries are healthy, they flex. When blood flows through them, the walls relax and widen, allowing the blood to move freely and without resistance. Your heart barely has to work. When your arteries are damaged, stiffened by years of inflammation, clogged by layers of plaque, your heart has to push with enormous force just to keep blood moving. That is high blood pressure. That is the setup for a heart attack. Now here is the question that researchers spent years trying to answer. What makes the difference between arteries that stay flexible for a century and arteries that harden at 60? The answer is a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is one of the most important compounds your body produces. It signals the muscles in your artery walls to relax. It widens the blood vessels. It reduces blood pressure naturally. It prevents the tiny injuries to the vessel lining that eventually become dangerous plaques. And the most powerful way to increase your body's production of nitric oxide is not a pill. It is not an injection. It is a dark green leaf. Walk into a traditional kitchen in Okinawa, and the first thing that strikes you is the color. Dark green, on almost every plate, at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner. Sea vegetables, particularly wakame and kombu seaweed, are a cornerstone of the traditional Okinawan diet. Alongside them, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, arugula, broccoli, watercress. Dark, bitter, deeply colored leaves that most people in the Western world eat once a week if they are lucky. These foods are extraordinarily rich in natural nitrates, and here is how it works. When you eat these vegetables, bacteria naturally present in your mouth convert those nitrates into nitrites. Your body then transforms those nitrites into nitric oxide, and that nitric oxide goes straight to work on your arterial walls, signaling them to soften and expand. Think of your arteries like a garden hose. When the hose is stiff and narrow, water has to be forced through with great pressure. The pump works twice as hard. Now imagine that hose becoming flexible and wide. The water flows effortlessly. The pump barely exerts itself. That is what nitric oxide does to your cardiovascular system. And the people of Okinawa have been triggering this response every single day, at every single meal, for their entire lives. This is not folklore. This is published science from some of the most respected medical journals in the world. A study in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that people who regularly consume nitrate-rich vegetables have systolic blood pressure readings between 4 and 10 points lower than those who do not. To put that in context, many prescription blood pressure medications produce reductions in that same range. The difference is that vegetables come without side effects. Research from the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom demonstrated that beetroot juice, another exceptionally nitrate-dense food, reduced blood pressure within hours of consumption in healthy adults. Sea vegetables carry their own separate arsenal of cardiovascular benefits. They are rich in fucoidan, a compound that multiple studies have linked to reductions in LDL cholesterol and to the prevention of dangerous blood clots. They are also one of the most concentrated natural sources of potassium, iodine, and magnesium available in any food. And potassium deserves special attention here because it does something remarkable. It directly counteracts the effects of sodium on blood pressure. If salt raises your blood pressure, potassium is the natural antidote. and the average person in Okinawa consumes far more potassium than the average person in the United States or Europe, not through supplements, but through the food on their plate. The Okinawan elders do not track macros. They do not use nutrition apps. They have not read a single clinical trial published in English. They simply eat what their culture taught them to eat, generation after generation. And that ancestral wisdom is now being confirmed, piece by piece, by the most advanced nutritional science in the world. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara was one of the most respected physicians in Japanese history. He lived to 105 years old. He practiced medicine actively until he was 103. He walked, he lectured, he saw patients. He wrote books. He was not a miracle or an anomaly. He was the most visible face of an entire generation of Okinawan elders who seemed to have found a way to stop the biological clock of the heart. When researchers from the Okinawa Centenarian Study, one of the longest and most detailed scientific investigations of human longevity ever conducted, analyzed the data, they found something that stopped them cold. The rate of cardiovascular disease in Okinawa was between 70 and 80% lower than in the United States. Not 10% lower, not 30% lower, 70 to 80%. Scientists spent years examining their genetics, their water supply, their air quality, their stress levels, and while all of those factors played a role, the most powerful and consistent variable came back to two things: what they put on their plate and how much of it they allowed themselves to eat. We have covered the first part. Now, let us talk about the second. The people of Okinawa have a saying they repeat before every meal, 4 words in Japanese that function as both a reminder and a ritual. Hara hachi bu. It means, eat until you are 80% full, not until your plate is empty, not until you could not possibly eat another bite, until you are 80% full, until you are satisfied but know you could have eaten a little more. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but the cardiovascular implications are enormous, and the science backs it up completely. When you chronically overeat, your body floods the bloodstream with excess insulin to manage all of those incoming nutrients at once. Over time, that chronic hyperinsulinemia damages the inner lining of your arteries, promotes systemic inflammation, and accelerates the formation of arterial plaque. Hara hachi bu interrupts that cycle before it begins. Moderate caloric restriction, not extreme fasting, just consistently eating a little less, has been shown in study after study to reduce inflammatory markers in the blood. And chronic inflammation is now considered one of the primary drivers of cardiovascular disease, arguably more important than cholesterol levels alone. Research into longevity genes has also found that moderate caloric intake activates proteins called sirtuins, which act as cellular repair mechanisms, protecting DNA and maintaining the health of blood vessel walls over decades. Dr. Hinohara, whenever he was asked for his personal health secret, always mentioned 2 things: eat slowly and do not fill yourself completely. He believed the dinner table should be a place of pleasure, not performance, and in that simple belief, he was practicing one of the most evidence-based cardiovascular strategies available to any human being. What did the doctor actually eat before 8 in the morning? Records from the Okinawa Centenarian Study, combined with interviews conducted with the island's oldest residents, reveal a remarkably consistent pattern in the breakfasts of the longest-lived individuals. Miso soup with seaweed and tofu, a simple fermented base rich in probiotics, plant protein and minerals, accompanied by small portions of brown rice, lightly sautéed seasonal vegetables, and often purple sweet potato, the emo, which is loaded with anthocyanins, the same pigments found in blueberries, that protect the cells lining your blood vessels from oxidative damage. No refined sugar. No ultra-processed foods, no white flour, no bottled juices packed with fructose, and everything eaten slowly, sitting down, without a screen in sight. The combination of what they ate and how they ate it was never separate. You cannot take one without the other and expect the same results. The food provided the biochemical tools. The ritual of eating provided the conditions for those tools to work. When people hear about the secrets of Okinawa, the first thing they do is go online and order a seaweed supplement in capsule form, or a concentrated spinach powder, or a beetroot extract tablet. And then they continue eating exactly as they did before, in the same quantities, at the same frantic pace, under the same chronic stress. That does not work. The reason Okinawan elders have the hearts of people half their age is not because of a single magic ingredient. It is because of the compounding effect of decades of simple, consistent daily decisions. It is the nitrates from the algae plus the nitric oxide relaxing the arteries, plus the moderate caloric intake reducing inflammation, plus gentle daily movement, plus deep social connections, plus a sense of purpose, what the Japanese call ikigai, the reason you get out of bed every morning. None of these elements works as a standalone cure. Together, they form a shield. What you can do is start with the simplest thing available to you tomorrow morning: a handful of dark, leafy greens. A plate served just a little smaller than usual. 5 minutes eating without looking at your phone. That is enough to begin. The practical question: how do you bring this into your life without moving to Japan? It is simpler than you think. First, add a source of dark, leafy greens every morning before 8. It does not need to be a large salad. A handful of spinach blended into a smoothie. Half a cup of lightly steamed broccoli alongside your eggs. A glass of beetroot juice with lemon. What matters is not the quantity, but the consistency. Not what you do occasionally, but what you do every single day. Second, introduce sea vegetables into your meals at least 3 times a week. Dried wakame is available at natural food stores and Asian grocery markets, and it rehydrates in minutes. A small amount added to soups, salads, or grain bowls delivers a concentration of minerals that is almost impossible to match through any other food. Third, practice hara hachibu at every meal by doing something concrete. Serve yourself 20% less than you normally would. Do not count calories. Do not weigh your food. Just reduce the portion visually before you sit down. Within 2 to 3 weeks, your stomach will adapt and that amount will feel exactly right. Fourth, eat 1 meal a day without any screen. No phone, no television, no laptop. Just the food, the flavors, the texture, and if someone is with you, the conversation. When you eat with attention, your brain receives satiety signals more clearly, and you naturally tend to eat less without any conscious effort at restriction. And fifth, look honestly at your social connections. Do you have people in your life you can be fully honest with? People who would be there if you needed them? Because the research is unambiguous. Chronic social isolation damages the heart as surely as a poor diet. And in Okinawa, no one is alone. Doctor. Hanohara gave his last major interview at the age of 104. When asked what single piece of advice he would give to someone who wanted to live longer and better, his answer was 3 sentences. Do not fill your schedule, do not fill your stomach, and never stop laughing. A complete philosophy of life in 30 words. The oldest functioning heart on that island did not belong to someone who took the right pill or followed the perfect protocol. It belonged to someone who, every single morning for a century, made a series of quiet, simple, consistent choices. And those choices are available to every single one of us, starting tomorrow morning. If this video made you think differently about what you put on your plate, share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next one.